We're in for a wild night.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 92 of Born to be Wild, a Wild exclusive Hearthstone podcast where we have fun hanging out with friends, talking about the Wild format of Hearthstone and spotlighting members of the Wild community. I am your host, as always, Nate Wolf. It's great to be back on another beautiful Friday evening here, joining you from Portland, Oregon. It has been a crazy week, but I'm really happy to be back and be hanging out with some of my favorite people tonight. So first up, welcome back, Hydra. We missed you last week, and I'm happy to see you again. How you doing?
Thank you. I am so glad to be back. Last week, I was out sick. My family was sick. We were bedridden and not having the greatest time, but so bad of a time that I actually couldn't even play video games. I remember I came out of my bedroom, and I'm like, I'm going to play games. I sat at the computer, and I'm like, no, back to bed. Unfortunately. So it was rough, but doing much better, and I missed your guys' faces, and I'm so happy to be here this week. And yeah, so I'm excited for the show. Of course, we have one of our favorite returning guests, basically part of the show at this point. So I'm really excited for tonight's show.
Yeah, me too. We got an awesome one tonight. But first, let me say hello to my good friend, Electric Sheep City. How are you?
Meowdy, friend. I'm doing pretty well myself. I've been, working on putting in your 2 weeks notice at work is very much like, okay. Yeah, very excited for that part. But it's very much like... It's
not you, it's me.
Yeah. It's more like, hey, okay, all that stuff that you always do, finish up all the things you can and that aren't ongoing, and get ready for everyone else taking up on all your other stuff, and train everyone else on how to do all the things that you do. All of that in 2 weeks. Ooh. So yeah, it's a lot, but doable. And it's kind of like the final push to go on to bigger and better things. So very excited to be done with this week. Very excited to be listening to some lore this week. Very excited to be hanging out with some good buddies. So all systems go. Let's go.
All right. And last but not least, welcome back to our favorite Loremaster, Goliath the Dwarf. Thank you so much for joining us. It's wonderful to see you. How are you?
I'm doing good. This is something I look forward to pretty frequently. I love being on the shows, telling the lore to you guys, and it's been a bit of an intense week with me, partially with a lot of work stuff that I've been doing, but also just the weather. Like I said before the show started, we had a couple absolutely polar blast, they were called Arctic blast officially, where the weather dropped to -12 with wind chill and everything, and the schools were all canceled, and it was do not go out unless absolutely necessary, and if you're really bundled up, because it's literally hazardous to your health when it's this cold.
Jeez, wow.
But everything is much better now. Now we're at a nice toasty 4 degrees outside as I speak, which feels positively balmy in comparison.
Hey, positive, not in the negative, seems great.
Bingo on that. But frankly, we're kind of good to put in the mood, because we're going to be talking about a pretty cold weather place tonight, and occasionally you have a couple of the residents that, wield, how many cards use the frost spell, the spell school and everything. It's just think about how painful that would actually be to be attacked by all those where you're frozen solid and shattered. It's when you think about it, we're committing some pretty heinous things to the minions on the Hearthstone board. This is painful.
That's true. Does sound painful, but what hopefully won't be painful is listening to us this evening. So, for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome aboard. Let me briefly explain how the show works. We record this podcast live every Friday evening at twitch.tv/BornToBeWildHS. And the video version of the podcast is then posted to YouTube the very next day. Audio versions are also distributed to all the podcast apps. Check it. So, however you're watching or listening or absorbing via osmosis this podcast today, thank you. Yes, you.
Heart, hands, and all that stuff. Oh, I love it. Yeah,
Or
thank y'all.
Hydra's claws, talons, whatever you want to say.
Sheep hooks?
Dwarfs just have hands, so. I'm the only one of the four of us with opposable thumbs. I don't have paws or hooves or talons.
You're missing out. All right, y'all, before
One of these things is not like the other.
oh man, we got a great show. We got a great show lined up tonight. Real quick before we get started, I want to say a big but a very important thank you to Shokunin, but to all the other patrons of our show. Thank you so much for your support. It really means the world to us. It's we appreciate you more than we can say. For those of you watching, listening, or somehow imbibing this content, if you do enjoy it, please leave a like, subscribe, comment on the video on YouTube, as it helps other people find our content. Another way to support the show is to leave a comment or a review on your podcast app of choice, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcast, or whatever that is. Finally, if you're watching this live on Twitch, we do have some emotes that you can unlock if you would like to subscribe. So aside from that, we do have a Patreon. If you feel like joining the show, all of that can be found on our website, which is borntobewildhs.com. And then lastly, a brief plug for our Discord community, which is an absolute blast. If you're interested in interacting with us personally, please feel free to join our Discord community. It's a free, it's online community where we love hanging out with friends. We've met people all across the whole world, and it's been an absolute blast. We talk about Hearthstone, we share deck lists, we share memes and jokes, talk about real life and all kinds of stuff, and it's just a lot of fun, and we'd love it if y'all would join us. You can find the link to that. The invitation is also on our website, which is borntobewildhs.com.
Yeah, and you can find all of us at that Discord, so check it out.
I understood that reference too. I'm so excited. That's the Beastie Boys song. All right. Hydralisk, there's a little bit of news this week.
Yeah, so briefly before we get into the meat of the show, patch 22.2 dropped this past Tuesday on January the 22nd. So the nerfs that we discussed, I mean, these guys discussed because I was out sick last week, but that we discussed last week is all live. So everybody get in here, go play some Wild. Let's see what that meta is all about. That all dropped. You guys can check out the patch notes if you really want to see those, get an in-depth view of what's going on. We have those posted in the show notes, or you can head over to playhearthstone.com and check out the news section. But let's move into our main topic that we have tonight.
All right. Yeah, the reason that y'all are here tonight, we are talking about the Fractured and Alterac lore part 2. So if you missed it, we've broken up the lore into 2 parts because there's quite a bit, and so we'll dig right into it. I'm going to pass everything over to Goliath, and we'll do a super brief recap of what we covered last time, and then jump into part 2 over here.
All right, so last time on Born to Be Wild Loremasters, we discussed the 2 main factions that reside in Alterac Valley, representations of the Horde and the Alliance. The Horde is represented by the Frostwolf Orcs, who is the tribe of Thrall, and his father Duratan, who was the chieftain of the Frostwolf tribe, and through a long series of events involving the corruption of the Orcish race by the warlock Gul'dan, the Frostwolves were exiled because they didn't want to take part in it, and found salvation by hiding away in Alterac Valley. On the Alliance side, we have the Stormpike clan of dwarfs, who are there for various reasons, generally involving expanding the territory of the Dwarven Kingdom into the Alterac Mountains, because it's very similar to the areas they live in, and also the dwarves are often very much into things like mining and archaeology and searching for things like that they could find in Alterac Valley. The two factions each believe that they have the undisputed claim to this land and will never stop fighting this essential proxy battle between the two factions, even though when you really break down their claims, neither of them has the securest grasp on it. Like, I don't know, like, Nate, you're in the legal profession. Like, if they presented them to you, I don't know if either of them would really hold up in court.
They can have a death duel over it.
That's what they've been doing for years and years.
Trial by combat.
Version of that.
That sounds like more Texas legal advice than Oregonian legal advice there.
What we're going to get started with tonight is talking about who owned the land, who called this area home before these two factions came in. Just a bit of an explanation about what the heck is this location anyway. What is Alterac? So, Alterac was actually one of the original 7 human kingdoms that formed the very first version of the Alliance. After the Orcish Horde invaded, and so, like, you know, the two factions have evolved quite a bit since their first conceptions. The Horde was initially just the Orcs, and the Alliance was just a group of human kingdoms before the Dwarves and Gnomes joined in and all of that. There were essentially 7 human kingdoms, and this might sound a little familiar to you guys if you remember from when we talked about the history of Stormwind, about how there once was this one large human kingdom called Erethdor that had a capital called Strom, and eventually it expanded out and there were many outposts, but over time those outposts grew into city-states that gained their own independence and became their own kingdoms. Alterac was one of those. It was set up in the Alterac Mountains. Probably initially was a trading post because having a secure trading pathway through a mountain range is a very important strategic position. So you have people who go there and it just kind of grows into its own little independent kingdom. But it was the smallest and the weakest of all of the human kingdoms that joined the Alliance, and frankly, they didn't really contribute all that much. Just like kind of, one of those token gestures of soldiers and supplies. Honestly, the king didn't even want to join the Alliance. His name was King Aiden, let's see if I can pronounce this correctly, Pernendold. Yeah, Perenolde. So, Pernendold, I think, is how we would say that. There isn't really a pronunciation guide for a lot of these fantasy names, so we have to make the best of it if you don't hear it pronounced. But at any rate, this guy didn't want to join the Alliance at all, because when you have an alliance of kingdoms, sure, you have security, and people will back you up, but you also have to divert a lot of your own funds to all of the other kingdoms that are part of the Alliance. And they're a small kingdom as it is, so not all that much to give. And so he just kind of joined in when everybody else did, because otherwise he'd be worried that he'd be the one lone outlier who would have to face the Horde alone. But he frankly got so scared of the overwhelming power of the Horde because the Alliance was losing in several battles during the first, and by the time we get to the second war between the Alliance and Horde, he actually betrayed the Alliance, made a deal with the Orcs. It's like, hey, so you guys don't destroy my kingdom, and I'll help you out. I'll let you get through a secret safe passage through these mountain passages through my kingdom so you can attack the other kingdoms. I'll arrange for some pirates to go and try to assassinate Uther, which obviously that didn't happen because, Uther's story goes long after that, and he's our main Hearthstone paladin, but lots of other stuff. And eventually he got found out, and he was captured, but the kings of the alliance had this rule that a sovereign king couldn't be executed or exiled or jailed forever, because they're like, if we get on each other's bad side, we want to have an agreement that that's not going to happen to any of us, so we can't do it to anyone. Sheep, you have a question?
Is the king of Alterac a Hearthstone card called
No.
Dirty Rat?
Oh, I didn't see where you go there first. You got me with that one. No, the lore does not state that he was transformed into a kobold. I don't know if that would even be possible. But at any rate, back on track here, is that basically the entire kingdom was essentially put under martial law, and it essentially dissolved after the war. Like, it ceased to exist as a political entity. Frankly, Alterac hadn't had good relationships with any of the other kings that were a part of the alliance beforehand. There were territorial disputes with the southern kingdom of Strom, which was what was left of the original capital of Erethdor, and there were frequent clashes by... Actually, the leader of Strom was a guy who I think would make a great warrior legendary someday. He's went by the name of Trollbane, and he's just like, a very good human warrior, was obviously very good at killing trolls. And and all of the other kingdoms were like backing this guy. They were all best buds, and so Alterac was very alienated from all the other human kingdoms anyway, so they felt, what do we have to lose? We'll fight for the Horde. But it didn't work out for them at all. And so there are ruins in that area of what once was a small kingdom in the mountains, but essentially no one really lives there, and that left the land that much more open to be claimed by all of these different groups that are constantly fighting over it. And that's going to be where we go to our next section, because we are going to go on a grand tour of Alterac Valley. Especially since you may have noticed that several of the cards in the set are specific locations. So we're going to go from the top to the bottom, starting with the Alliance side and working our way down, pointing out where some of the key cards are on the map. But part of the explanation of this is I am going to have to explain a bit of how this game aspect works within the game of World of Warcraft. I ask you to bear with me because while I know a lot about lore, I am not a master of PvP content by any stretch of the imagination. So this was not something I was super well versed in before doing all the research on this. But basically, the way this works is that you have your team of Alliance players and you have your team of Horde players. And unlike other types of player versus player content in World of Warcraft, where it's just you're seeing who can kill the other team first, or sometimes there's like an orb to the other side type of game mode or whatever like that. This is a big, full, intense one where there's lots of different objectives. And ultimately, you want to gather resources and capture various key battleground points like graveyards and towers and battlefields and all of that stuff in order to gradually work your way to breaking down through the enemy keep and slaying the enemy leader. And the leaders are our two legendaries that came with the Horde and the Alliance, our little honor system that we had throughout this entire set. Vandar Stormpike is the commander in the Alliance bunker that if you're playing Horde, you want to work up there so you can go and kill him. And then Drekthar is down in the Frostwolf bunker, and then if you're Alliance, you want to work your way down through all the Horde defenses, break in, and slay him. Which is something really clever, and I didn't even notice this right away. I wonder if anyone else did, that for the honor progression system that we had in order to get all the cards, it changed the order of the cards that you got based on your faction, because, like, if you're playing Alliance, you would get the cards of the closest alliance locations, and it's like you're working your way down until you conquer each one, and then eventually you get the horde ones. And then you get Drekthar as the final one of your alliance, because, you finally got him, you completed the objective, and vice versa for your horde. So you would start with getting things like Frostwolf Kennels, and not get, like, the Stormpike Healing Station until towards the end, because that's on the other side. So that's just one of the really cool things that I love about Hearthstone, how they infuse that fantasy of taking these elements from the game mechanics and putting them into Hearthstone just translates so well. And I just want to give them credit. That was so cool.
That detail itself is just for anyone who's a WoW fan that played in Alterac Valley, probably jumped out for them. For me, it definitely did not. But I love those fine little details like that. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Super cool.
Yes. And we also have a few other residents that we're going to be talking about when we get to different areas here. But let's see. Nate, what is the first one that we're talking about? We're starting with the dwarven bunkers, essentially, aren't we?
Yeah, and so first off, I suppose here I had, you had briefly touched on, we have Vandar, who's our leader here for the Alliance, and then our first station, if you will, would be the Stormpike Aid Station.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and both of the faction areas have essentially, this is a respawn point. The various graveyards throughout Alterac Valley, when you capture a graveyard, when you die in combat, then you respawn at that area. So you want to get ones that are closer so you don't have to travel as far and give the enemy more time to move towards your position without any resistance. But even if you don't have any other graveyards, the healing stations at your faction base is where you have your respawn, and occasionally can turn in maybe a couple of minor objectives like, oh, I collected some bandage materials here, and it'll give a buff about that everyone heals easier or something like that. The game mode has seen different versions over the years as different patches and expansions have tweaked the way it works. Several of the things that we're going to talk about today, like some of the NPCs, are things that actually, if you play the modern game, you won't find if you go and play in Alterac Valley. But if you go into the classic servers, it's references to things from all the way back then. Which, again, like just kind of that's across the history, and this whole year has been kind of an homage to the original classic game experience as well. So I think that only makes sense, honestly. So yes, we have the healing station. What's our next stop along the tour, Nate?
All right, next stop is Dunbalder Bunker.
All right, so...
Which is so fun to say.
It's so funny, right?
Yes, Nate mentioned earlier that, wow, that's just a really silly name there. But this is one of those Dwarven language naming conventions. Dun actually, if I recall correctly, means something along the lines of snow. Like Dunmoreau is the name of the snowy land that the capital city of Ironforge is in. So it's just one of those... It sounds like silly, but, in universe, it is, like an ancient language of a noble people or something, but really, we do have to admit, they are also just silly sounds, too. But yes. But yeah, this is the various Dwarven bunkers here are particularly what, Horde players want to capture and Alliance players want to defend. And, yeah, there's a couple of these scattered throughout the area as different checkpoints to attack or defend. And you may recall on the Warlock card, Fellfire in the Hole, that's that they're throwing one. There's a Horde Warlock who's thrown in Fell spells into a Dwarven bunker. That's kind of one of those, a depiction of what some players are doing when they come across bunkers like that.
Nice.
Yeah, and one thing I almost forgot here, I believe in this particular bunker, we do have a prisoner.
Yes, yes. We are talking about one of our two wing commanders here, which is something that's really neat. So for four of the legendary cards, the class legendaries, they are essentially characters that mirror each other along the factions. So we have our two wing commanders. We have Mulveric, I believe is how we would pronounce this, as the Horde one, and then we have Ichman as the Alliance one, and we'll get to him later on. But yeah, in the game, these characters actually start out as prisoners in the opposite faction, and so what you want to do is fight your way up to them and be able to free them. And with a wing commander, once you can do that, you can turn in some medals to them that basically you get from killing other players. And when you do enough, you can order them to have, but I guess it would kind of amount to a drone strike, but it's a wyvern strike in this case, like sending in the aerial unit to, throw some bombs down and help you to make some advances on the enemy base. And so for Horde players, they want to get up to this bunker and free Wing Commander Mulveric here. Something that's really funny, and this actually plays in when we get Ichman too, is that there actually is a small amount of story with these two. Basically, like I said, some of the characters in the game were there at the start, but they're not there anymore. As soon as the first expansion in the game, Burning Crusade, which is where we get a lot of the Ashes and Outland stuff, actually, from that expansion, these wing commanders were removed from Alterac and made an appearance where they were actually working for a gladiatorial ring in Outland. And because both of them say they just got so fed up with hearing the whining from Horde soldiers about having to cross the Dunbaldar Bridge, which is another one of the locations that's in there and is our Paladin location card, because it's a reference to the player complaints, because with crossing this bridge was a real choke point, because you could get pushed off of it and take massive fall damage, and so it'd be really hard for Horde to be able to take it, a really easy defense position for Alliance players. And so they literally made it where these characters, like they canonized that not only the players but the actual in-universe Horde orc soldiers were constantly whining out, "It's not fair! They have that bridge!" And Wing Commander Mulveric just got so tired of hearing the infernal complaining and is like, "It's war, it's not supposed to be fair. Why do you keep complaining? It's not fair, it's not balanced."
All is fair in love and war.
Yeah, you gotta finish the sentence. War!
That is one of the very few of these characters that actually has any degree of story or appearance outside of the Alterac Valley Battleground, and I just find it hilarious and had to share it.
Oh, that's great. I love it. That's really funny.
Yeah. And then let's see. Moving on, what's our next stop?
Yeah, next stop on our journey here is the Iron Deep Mines.
Yes. So, mines in the Alterac Valley Battlegrounds are resource spawners, essentially. So, much like you want to capture like the bunkers and the towers that can serve as some station points, and you want to capture the graveyards so that you can respawn at them, capturing the mines will help to spawn some resources and some NPC fighters that will help assist you. But each of the mines has a different, shall we say, native of the valley in it. Some of the not quite as sentient or civilized races. For Iron Deep Mine, we have the Iron Deep Trogs, which you may remember when you play the cards, like, the Iron Deep Mine is mine! And it's like, it's just directly saying it right there. And so they live in that area, and if either faction wants to capture it, they have to deal with taking out the Trogs first. Incidentally, a little fact about Trogs is that they are sort of like the failed prototype for dwarves. Because the dwarves were originally basically made of living stone that were created by the Titans. But the Titans first made like a prototype, but it didn't turn out well. It turned into the Trogs, but they couldn't bear to put them down, so they just kind of put them in stasis, hoping they wouldn't cause trouble. But that stasis failed after a few millennia, and they broke out and started causing trouble. So that's where Trogs come from.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, they're like the ugly inbred cousins that you don't want to talk about.
But Trogs rule.
Trogs rule. Yep, so that's our Iron Deep Mine right there. That's something that you're going to want to deal with the Trogs in to try to deal and get a few extra resources, especially if you're in a losing position in the fight.
Very good. All right, next stop on our journey here is Stonehearth Outpost and Graveyard.
Right. So, some of you may recognize the name Stonehearth. This one's pretty obvious. This is where we get to the first of our faction captains, who each also are a legendary card here. This is Belinda Stonehearth, and like I'm sure everyone else thought too, and I love that you put it in the flavor text. It's like, imagine Stonehearth surprised to find she's in a game called Hearthstone. It's like, yep, it is quite fitting, really. So she is essentially, if you're playing Horde, she's like a mini boss in a sense, that she is holding this stronghold, and you have to take her out in order to be able to capture it and make any significant advancement. Each of the captains gives a buff. And provides an advantage to any of the players as long as they're still alive. So there's motivation for the Alliance to really fight to keep her alive. And she is a mage caster, just like her card. She has different stuff she does. Let's see, some of her, she casts Fireball, Frostbolt, Cone of Cold, Ice Block, really summon Water Elemental. A lot of what we have is some of the core mage spell cards, actually, are things that she casts. She casts. There really isn't anything directly related to the card mechanics of her, like drawing spells and switching stats. It's more of just a Hearthstone mechanic thing. But like I always say, when a character doesn't have much lore to begin with, I can't really get mad at them for not being faithful to the character or just throwing mechanics in, because like, what else are you going to do? I'm just happy for the representation. It is cool to have all those, because for people who play these, they know these characters. It's pretty significant. So, like the way I geek out about major lore characters who become legendary cards, people who would play Hearthstone and a lot of Alterac Valley would be like, ooh, there's her. I know her. Even though I didn't do it quite so much. I had to look her up when she first came out. Yeah, I don't know everything, but I do lots of research. But yeah, so she is. She has her post named after her. The Horde isn't quite as obvious there, but we'll get to them later. Next stop on the tour, driver.
Next stop on the tour is Icewing Cavern.
All right, so Icewing Cavern. I'm going to give you guys a chance to make a little guess here. We have some other creatures.
Did I spoiled it by showing the card? I'm sorry.
Okay. Darn it. What occurs to your mind? Does the word Icewing sound familiar at all? Peeking.
No.
Icewing Harpy.
Ah.
Literally one of the cards that we have. The one if you're holding a frost spell, you gain fire armor.
It's good. In here, they call it Snowblind Harpy.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep, the Snowblind Harpies. that is, but they live in Icewing Cavern because it all, they have wings and they're, frost magic, so, Icewing, Snowblind, it all goes together there. But yeah, so much like we had the Trogs in the Iron Deep, this is a stronghold where the Snowblind Harpies reside. And again, much like the mines, this is a point where you want to capture it. It gets you some resources. Hello to the little wolf there. And yeah, so then instead of the Trogs, then you have to fight off the Harpies who live in this area, and that's where they fit in on the map.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, and then so that I'm gonna go back to the map real quick, but it looks like that takes us pretty much through the heart of the Alliance territory here. The heart of the cards, yeah. Okay, so that was we've gone through. We started at the top at Dun Balder, gone through the aid station, the bunkers, Stormpike Graveyard, the mines, and then we've got the Icewing Bunker, Stonehearth Graveyard, Stonehearth Outpost, and then finishing up the Alliance territory with the Icewing Cavern. Right in the middle here is this one area of neutral territory called Snowfall Graveyard, which is where we are right now.
Yes, so this is smack dab right in the middle of it, and it is the only spot that is capturable on the map that does not start out as belonging to one faction or another. It's whoever can rush there and capture it first, and that often will give, a bit of an advantage in that regard. This is actually the area where Korak used to be back when he was just in the original version of the game. We'll talk about Korak a bit more towards the end because he actually is one that has lore that connects with his mechanics, so we want to give him a little extra spotlight. But yeah, right now this is just kind of it's the middle ground area, but it used to be the roaming area for a bit of a PvE boss in a PvP area.
Gotcha. It actually makes a lot of Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say...
Yeah, go ahead.
It makes a lot of sense that there's a graveyard right in the middle of both warring factions, right? Because they meet in the middle and fight, and everyone dies, and you've got a de facto graveyard right in the middle.
Mm-hmm. In fact, this is also the area. This middle area here is the Field of Strife that we have as the Demon Hunter location card.
Oh.
So yeah, it's not labeled on our map here, but that's why, because it's the constantly contested area where there's the most strife there. So that's how that gets that name, and it's the big open field in the valley.
Oh, I see it, yeah. Very cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
And so now we're moving along into the beginnings of Horde territory as we continue further down our map here.
All right, so first up is the Frostwolf Keep, and I believe that that's where our priest legendary is hanging out.
Yes. So, this is another character that isn't in the game anymore, was only in the original classic stuff. So again, you would have to go to the classic servers for a chance at finding Najak Hexen. But one of the things that made this a bit different from other PvP game modes, like I mentioned before, is that it's not just the rushing forward, the fighting other players. It's often that you're gathering you're looting some resources from the players you kill, and sometimes the NPCs that you kill, and you can take them back to characters that are in your faction and trade them in, like increasing your armor abilities or sending more troops out to aid you. And Najak Hexen is, kind of like the witch doctor with voodoo that the troll culture has so much of. And the specific quest that Hexen would give was to go out and kill night elves. Because there's a particular animosity between the trolls and the night elves, because night elves are actually magically evolved trolls from like 10,000 years ago, that were basically, you had trolls that were hanging around this magically infused lake called the Well of Eternity, and through the magic kind of slowly evolved them to become more developed into what we know as elves over time. And this particular troll has a real beef with the elves. Is like, they think they so high and mighty. Before the elves, there was the troll. Go and kill the elves. And like I said, that quest isn't in the game anymore. I think it was even just in a really early version of Classic, so I can't guarantee it would be there if you went to a Classic server, but maybe it would. But anyway, that's where this character comes in. Again, I just love that they're not just doing what you'd see now, they're going back into the history.
All the way.
Yeah, which I think is really neat, that it makes you look up these characters. Well, it makes me do it, and I tell it to everybody who would otherwise be totally forgotten. But the mere being incarnated as a legendary card in Hearthstone, I think, is a high honor for any Warcraft character, because it gets that particular attention focused on you in that way. And I just think that's so fun.
That's so cool. Yeah, I love it.
And it must be fun for anybody who, really remembers this character in the first place.
Yes, I'm sure that's a very small amount of people, but hey, that just makes it the exclusive club,
Well, and the way that you described how this character works in the game, it seems like the abilities on the Hearthstone card really kind of follow along with that, where you take control of an enemy minion, but when it dies, you give it back. So very cool. Nice little throwback over there.
Great flavor.
All right, continuing on our journey. So now we have kind of the counterpart to the Dunbalder bunker. This is our West Frostwolf Tower. And this is where the other side's prisoner is being kept. So here we have Wing Commander Eichmann.
Right. And so Wing Commander Eichmann is very similar to our other Wing Commander. It's like basically it's the mirror side. So he's been captured by the Horde. If your alliance, you want to break in and free him. If you give him enough stuff, then he'll send a Griffin squad down to strafe the enemy lines and help you win a bit more. And he has the same story where, not because he's a commander of the orcs who has to listen to them grumble, but because he's held a prisoner by the orcs, and he has to listen to his guards be complaining all of the time. And so basically, he and Bolveric, essentially, they put aside their differences. They go and are like working in Outland together, kind of like bonding over the shared distaste of those irritating orcs who are complaining about unfair game mechanics or something, And yeah, so he's again these are characters that maybe you wouldn't quite remember if you hadn't played at a certain time, but they are now immortalized as these Hearthstone cards, and a lot of their battle cry lines of how he's like, "Trickthar, I'm coming for you," are actually the things that they would say in the game. Like when you free them and you send them out, they'd have not a voice line, but like a text bubble that flies out and you can see in the chat and stuff. So they took a lot of those and turned them into voiced battle cry and attack lines and stuff for some of these characters, which again is a really cool way to incarnate it over into Hearthstone. I think they're so faithful to the essence of a lot of these characters in that sense. They can't always be faithful for the mechanics, but a lot of the time they are.
Love it. That's so cool. All right, next up on our stop, continuing down, is the Cold Tooth Mine.
Yes. So this is one that we actually have a card depicting. The Druid Epic Capture Cold Tooth Mine. And then we also have our little residents of that area, which is a particular tribe of kobolds known as the White Whisker Kobolds. And they live in Cold Tooth Mine right there, and it's... And it's basically the same as the other mines, but it's something, since it's on the Horde side, the Horde generally can capture it first, but, it can provide a bit of an advantage to Alliance if they can wrest it out of the Horde's control. So, again, not super lot to talk about, because we've already gone over the basics of how the mines work, but that's where these guys fall here. And again, for the Kobold here, they put it in the voice line. She's like, "Hey, Kochu's mine," and it's. I love that they make the obvious references right there that can help to connect the dots if you don't quite remember or didn't know in the first place where they fit in with all this.
That's so cool. Love it. All right, then continuing on our journey, next up is the Iceblood Tower.
Right. So, much like the Alliance has their bunkers, the Horde has a bunch of towers. And we have a couple of smaller minions, I think called like Tower Guardian, or how, if you might remember some of the battleground skins that you get with the... Why am I blanking on what it's called when you earn stuff?
Oh, you're talking about the Tavern Pass?
Yeah, that's it. One of them is called like Tower Toppler Reno, because it's kind of like the idea, like he's on the Alliance and he's going and he's trying to take down the towers. So yeah, that's the dwarves have their sturdy stone bunkers that are down in the ground, and the Horde has like tall rickety wooden towers. I think the dwarf is probably the better architecture choice for a situation like this, but there's no accounting for cultural taste, I suppose. That's what the orcs like.
Oh my goodness, that's great. All right. Next up is Iceblood Garrison.
Right. So this is all in the same general area, as you can tell from the fact that it's Iceblood Tower and Iceblood Garrison, which Matt, of course, an orc tribe that lives in the snow would call it something edgy like that. Because they're all like, blood and honor, strength and thunder, and all of that stuff,
Ice and blood.
Yeah, that's not an actual line, but I can guarantee you there are some orcs that they would totally be willing to say that. And yes, that's that made a lot of sense for the warrior, because there's a lot of orc warriors. It's very central to a lot of their culture with the grunts and everything that would come out of that area. Not too much to specifically talk about with the Iceblood Garrison, but now you know exactly where it is along the map. And then we had another captain to talk about, actually, didn't we?
Yes. Who I believe is in this area, correct? So this is our warrior legendary, Captain Galvanger.
Correct. So he is basically the Horde equivalent that Belinda Stonehearth is to the Alliance. He doesn't have his place is named after him, though, for whatever reason. I don't know whether that says that Stonehearth has too big of an ego or what. Can't really say on that point. But this guy is essentially, you may... His design may look a little familiar to you, because it is generally theorized, well, not explicitly stated, but from his design, that he is a blade master, much like Samuro. If you remember him, the Diamond Legendary the first Diamond Legendary we ever got, actually, from the Forged in the Barrens set. And so, yeah, a member of the Burning Blade orc tribe, and they're essentially, as you can guess from the name Samuro, they're like samurai-style sword masters of the orcs. Have the ability to, they coat their blades in like a special oil so that it will unpredictably catch on fire in the heat of battle when sparks are flying and stuff, and throw their enemies off guard. Don't know if there's anything specific that he really does with that in the Alterac Valley Battleground, but lore-wise, that's the sort of thing that they would generally do. And again, yeah, he is, like I said, basically serving the same purpose that Stonehearth does for the Alliance. If you're Alliance, then you want to be able to take him out, because as long as he's around, he provides buffs that help out Horde players. But yeah, that's where he's there. He's located right along the map there.
Very cool. And then our last location here is the Wild Paw Cavern.
Correct. And we actually forgot to set this one up, but this is where the Wild Paw Gnolls live, which is actually a card that received some nerfs recently, if I remember correctly. The rogue one that when you draw a card of a different class, it lowers it. That's where these guys fit. They live right here. Wild Paw Cavern, Wild Paw Gnome. Not sure which came first, the chicken or the egg on that one, but that is where they reside. And again, just like all of the others with the kobolds, with the gnolls, with the harpies, this is just, if you want the area, you have to go through the gnolls.
Makes sense.
Come with the territory.
And yes, this we were talking about earlier in the show. We got the patch notes this week, and this card got nerfed. So definitely very familiar in everybody's mind, hopefully. But there is one more character that is residing in this area that we did talk about last time, who is our... I guess you would call it our class legendary, our faction leader, if you will.
Faction leader for Alterac Valley. That'd be the best way to describe him. Yes, we are of course talking about the amazing Drekthar, who we covered quite extensively in the last one, because he is like just about the oldest orc around, honestly. As I said, at this point in current lore, he's literally in, like, they invented wheelchairs for him because he's, like, old and blind and senile, but he's still highly respected as a powerful shaman. And, but, the Alterac Valley, he's, they don't have that depiction of him because that would be way too unfair for the Alliance. Like, if you're Horde, you gotta fight, this dual-wielding Mountain Thane and Varden Stormpike. And if you're Alliance, like, I'm just gonna go kill a guy who's in a wheelchair. Okay, this is no problem. So they don't have him like that in Alterac Valley. That's where he is more in, like, current lore. But no, he's a really strong leader for the Frostwolves, and he's like he's never surrendered. He's like, this is our home. You get out, all of you.
So Drekthar isn't going, get back over here, Vandar.
Nope.
He's going, get off my lawn.
Well, that is kind of what he's saying, but in a much more badass fashion.
It's so funny.
Get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn of ice and blood.
In the game, like, they make him look so buff, and you see him like, oh wow, he's scary, and then you pull up in the game and there's an orc riding on the back of his wheelchair, or he's pushing him.
He's pushing,
It's a segue. It's a segue. They're just like double riding it together.
You darn whippersnappers.
No, it's like his nursing home attendant.
Clint Eastwood can play him in the next Warcraft movie.
I really wish they would make more of those. As I have said before, the Warcraft movie is how I got into this world in the first place. Started researching everything. Largely because I didn't entirely understand what was going on in the movie, so I had to read like all the Wikipedia entries for everything. And like, wow, I want to learn more about all this stuff. Which maybe doesn't indicate the best about the movie communicating things, but it still did the job for me.
That's great. Well, looking at the map here, that pretty much takes us down through all of Alterac Valley. So now we've gone through Frostwolf Keep, all the way through the towers, Cold Tooth Mine, the Graveyard, Iceblood Garrison, and ending up at Wild Paw Cavern here. So there's our sort of tour coming to a conclusion, but we do have a few legendary minions to talk about that do have some interesting stories. And so first up is Korak, the Blood Rager.
Right, and of course he's one that stands out to a lot of us because, again, he has the distinguishment of being a diamond card, and frankly, as I've used him a ton, like I got the achievement to summon him so many times pretty quickly because I was putting him in like so many decks, like with Desecrated Graveyard, where he gets killed, but because it wasn't the honorable kill, he gets, resurrected over and over again. So yeah, he is what is called a dire troll, which is basically like, a magically buffed up troll, and a few of the different troll kingdoms and tribes have them all around Azeroth. So he's actually the leader of a tribe of trolls called the Winterax tribe of ice trolls. They are actually kind of a subset of the Drakari ice trolls, which you guys are, especially Sheep, are familiar with one of these guys, because Merabi is one of their leaders. And the free shaman that you were playing, that's there's a connection between these guys. The Winterax were initially part of the Drakari, but long time ago there was, what we call the shattering, the cataclysm, the sundering is kind of the official term for it, when the one single continent of the world got split up into all the others, which we've covered a little bit back when we did our Yasharaj episode, and we'll do again when we cover our other old gods at some point. And essentially, so they got split up, broken into two sections. So while the main group of ice trolls are up in the Northrend area, which is why Merabi is in the Frozen Throne that's up in Northrend, the Winterax are more in what we now call the Eastern Kingdoms, and frankly, Alterac Valley is the closest climate that they're comfortable with that they can have. So they just kind of live in that area. Again, Korak used to be roaming around the Field of Strife Snowfall Graveyard area. He was removed from the game eventually. But one of the clever things is that it's an official part of the lore that he has been killed and resurrected by troll magic countless times. Like, that's one of the things they do with, like, their mojo and voodoo with all the troll culture. They can, like, raise them back and everything. So that's where his mechanic comes from, that if you don't kill him right, he just comes right back.
That makes sense.
That's so clever.
I mean, he's also he's so extremely buff for a troll compared to most trolls.
That is what it means to be a dire troll. They're essentially magically enhanced to become these, dare I say, Goliaths of trolls.
That magical enhancement is a gym membership.
Yeah. Instead of coaches, you have witch doctors.
Exactly. Tomato.
Well, he looks like a tomato.
A little bit.
There's a couple of other cards, like from Rasticon's Rumble and stuff, that are dire trolls as well. If you look back, they've appeared a few times. They often appear with other troll tribes, like the Gurabashi. The Jungle Trolls are one of the main ones that have dire trolls. But you can find them, at least a few of them, in a lot of different troll civilizations. And that leads us to the last two main legendaries that we're talking about, because we have our two neutral lords that we are going to address here. Tell me, out of curiosity, do you guys play any of these cards at all?
I played Ivus a little bit in the. I've goofed around with it, and it's really interesting. I think I always picture him. I never pictured him as a giant, because when I look at the card, it's a 1-mana 1/1, and I realized it gets a whole bunch of buffs, right, depending on how much mana you spend on it. And then I looked up the artwork in WoW, and this character is like this towering, behemoth, for lack of a better word. And I'm like, oh, that is different, but it makes sense. Like, if I spent, if I'm Guff and I spend 20 mana on it, it's going to be humongous, right? And so, yeah. It's interesting, but I only played a little bit, but I'll get around to using it more.
Yeah, he's really good in Beast Druid and Standard in particular, because if you're able to stick the 3-mana 2/4 that if it only costs 1, or if it costs 2 or less, then it makes more of them. Guess what? Even if it uses all of your mana, because of the battle cry, it will only cost 1. So you can get 2 big dudes. So fun
That's
fact
pretty
there, I
cool.
played a decent amount of Ivus in that
Okay.
Beast Druid. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think one of the main problems is that they don't have as good of a scale in this artwork as in some other artwork for Hearthstone cards.
Yeah.
I don't know whether, like, maybe they put in a little tiny person there, but it got cut off. You can't see it with the oval and everything. Maybe if we looked at the full artwork, there'd be something. I'm not certain. But essentially, so the 2 lords here are actually summonable advantages to the battleground, 1 for each faction. So Ivus the Forest Lord is something that is summonable by a druid character called Archdruid Renferal, who is a night elf, I believe. And the idea is that the Alliance players will go out and be collecting certain types of currency that they turn into this NPC. And once you have 200, they're called storm crystals, and you turn them in, and then he can summon Ivus the Forest Lord. And this is only summonable by Alliance. Lokholar is for the Horde. We'll get to him in a second. And he actually has buffs that he gets stronger depending on the activities of the players around him. Let's see. He patrols around the Field of Strife after he's summoned before he pushes over to Frostwolf Base. He's more powerful if everyone on your team buffs him, because he accepts every buff. So essentially, whatever player classes you have, like we have our paladin cards or our druid cards that you play it on a minion on the board and it makes it powerful, more stats, divine shield, whatever. This character, once you summon it, it will be empowered by every type of buff that every player of any class can put on it, so you can make it much more powerful in that way. And that is why we get in this version of with the card here, where the more that you have in order to kind of feed into him, like representing the different buffs, the stronger and more powerful that he gets.
So he's kind of reminiscent of Captain Planet, where with your powers combined, he is Ivus the Forest Lord.
I could totally picture a parody, something like that. But it would be, a bunch of shaman and druid stuff. I mean, heck, we have, talking about the Captain Planet, we have literally the elements of Warcraft: fire, ice, water, air, like
Heart.
Fire power. Oh yes, I forgot about heart. Spirit. There's the element of spirit.
There we go.
That's canon. It's what the monks called chi. But essentially, yes, this is, again, I think this is one of the more clever legendaries that, sure, it's a bit niche in the way the mechanic works at times. You guys have found ways to really make it work there in a game, but I really appreciate when they do this, where they take the way that what they're basing off of it in the game, how that mechanic worked, and turning it into a cool Hearthstone mechanic. Now, nowadays, you will hardly ever see him summoned, or Lokholar for that matter, because the way that most people play Alterac Valley nowadays is they completely ignore all the side objectives and completely rush to the end, the main base, like they want to just get Drekthar or Evander right away. And frankly, the way that people play it, because, it's the optimal way to do it, apparently, but they miss out on a lot of the extra features that we've been talking about, where these bases and these NPCs come into play. That's all being beautifully illustrated through the cards here. Ironically, we're experiencing more of the hearts of Alterac Valley Battleground through the Hearthstone set than many people who play the Alterac Valley Battleground in Warcraft. But moving on, then we have our last main card to talk about of Lokholar the Ice Lord here.
Very cool. One thing before I switch over, I did pull up the full art here, and you're right. It got cut off by the card frame. But if you look at the full art, you can see he is holding like an uprooted tree. It's just to show the size comparison, and then you see all the little trees kind of in the foreground and the background, kind of demonstrating the size. But in the card art here,
that sense of scale isn't really given any frame of reference.
Yeah, because
especially with the 1/1 stats, I'm like, eh.
Yeah, that's all. I saw it. It's like this little puny thing, but it really stacks. Anyhow,
right.
All right. So,
and by the way, he's what we call a forest ancient. By the way, the druids have a strong connection with them. They're kind of like manifestation, cult, guardian of the forest, nature magic type of stuff.
All right, now this one, the scale definitely you see. If you look closely on the card here, you can see these tiny little people getting right.
That's what
around.
I was saying. It's much better in this card. Ivus doesn't capture it quite as well. Also, Lokholar just has much bigger stats, so he gives a more imposing image. Mm-hmm. And we saw him in the trailer. How they're like, never fall back. They've summoned the Ice Lord. Hurry, fall back. Much like the Alliance can summon Ivus the Forest Lord, the Horde can collect the various Storm Crystal currency and be able to turn them in to summon Lokholar the Ice Lord. And Lokholar works a bit different. He's not just a direct clone of Ivus the Forest Lord. He actually starts out relatively weaker, but he can grow stronger over time if the Horde players around him kill Alliance players in his vicinity. So for every bit of blood that is spilt around him, it's like he absorbs that and he grows even stronger. That's why he says things about your essence will congeal. It's like talking about like the blood that's being spilt, and he's absorbing that to grow stronger. And that is why he has a mechanic that deals with losing your health. Because if you have 15 health or less, then he's a lot easier to summon as a card. And so that's the reference right there, that he grows stronger when kind of not exactly what you'd call like a blood sacrifice or offering, but he feeds on the loss of life around him and grows more powerful from it.
That's so clever. Cool. I love it.
And that is our basic tour of the remaining Alterac Valley cards that have any sense of lore. There's some legendaries like the shaman one with the the ice bear, I forget her name, or the rogue one that has another replaced cards of the class. Those are all Hearthstone original creations, and so far they haven't really provided us with any background story as to who these characters might be. Sometimes they'll do that in like blog posts or mention things on social media. As far as I know, they haven't done anything like that for some of these, probably because they've been focused on telling the story of the mercenaries, who are, the core Hearthstone original characters we've been following throughout the year. So that's why there's a couple legendaries that we really just don't have anything to say about right now.
Yeah, very cool. Well, this was exciting. I love the idea of looking at the map and taking a tour and kind of stopping at all these places along the way and seeing which minions reside in which particular area, which are bosses or whatever it is, and just super cool. I can kind of picture myself traveling through here. It's really neat. So thank you so much for the storytelling. It's really fun.
My pleasure.
And I can't wait to move into Iceblood Tower.
Like you're going to physically move into it?
Yeah. Of course.
Can I come over?
It's such a cozy sounding home.
Real estate in Alterac Valley is pretty cheap, actually.
Oh. Is that where you got the new job?
But the insurance is through the roof, man. Those premiums.
And life insurance, like, you just can't get any. It's
unfortunate.
Oh my goodness, I love it. I love it. Oh, well, we have a special treat. We haven't done one of these in quite a while, and I'm very excited because I have had such a busy week that I get to hear this for the first time, as all of you do. And Goliath has provided us with a parody song here, and so we are going to play it for y'all live on the show before we jump into any other part of the show real quick. So I am going to cue it up here, and you all are in for a treat.
Oh, battle tag 1359. This here's Goliath Dwarf. You got a copy on me, Nate Wolf? Come on. Oh yeah, 10-4, Nate Wolf, for sure, for sure. By golly, it's a clean shot to Diamond 5. Come on. Yeah, that's a big 10-4 there, Nate Wolf. We definitely got some good decks, buddy. Mercy sakes alive, looks like we found some OP combos. It was a gold ring 10 when we started again for the month-long season climb. Make a meta deck so we wouldn't get wrecked and hit legend in a record time. With a 4-soul mage and Antonitis slamming fire in their face. I says, Nate Wolf, this here's Goliath Dwarf, and I'm gonna throttle down this race. Cause we got a little old combo rocking through the game. Yeah, we got a little old combo bashing through without no shame. Come on and play our combo, ain't nothing gonna get in our way. We're gonna ride this OP combo up to the legend rank. Combo. Oh yeah, got an Ebon Blade OTK there, man. Master Beardo's about to give us the discount of our lives. Well, we picked up speed with the Demon Seed to the Carter's wild land. But reverted Raza came to the rescue when Voidform was well in hand. With the Shadow Spawn, we were well and gone to the Platinum was towards the end. I play Polymorph, said this here's the Dwarf, and I'm gonna turn the meta up band. Cause we got a great big combo rocking through the game. Yeah, we got a great big combo bashing through without no shame. Come on and play our combo, ain't nothing gonna get in our way. We're gonna ride this OP combo up to the legend rank. Combo. You wanna give me a tip to scales there, Hydra? Affirmative, buddy, the Merc Eye is set to go. Eviana, Kuhn, and Sara lineups, so plenty of the 7 Hells. With the Malgus and talk by the alterations, I was almost getting lost myself. With an Ignite Mage at a Diamond 5, those rankers were getting smart. They brought in the Aggro Pirates, and they tore my win streak apart. There's Juggernauts and Cannon Shots and Pirates of every size, and a Questline Hunter stripped away my health, my disgust had no disguise. We'll push straight through with a Garrett Rogue and a brand new LTK, and Shaman Freeze brought him to their knees as we sped those ranks away. Goliath Dwarf to Sheep come over? Listen, you want to put Mulligard Facer to boost the I-beam? Yeah, it's Lifesteal OTK DH Juggernaut, alright. When we closed our run at Diamond 1, prepared to cross the line. With the darkest hour, we were overpowered and a sure shot legend climb. I says, Nate Wolf, this year's Goliath Dwarf, I'm gonna play a shuttle walk. With the Serenite game, the combo sprang, and the legend rank last unlocked and 4. Cause we got a mighty combo rocking through the game. Yeah, we got a mighty combo bashing through without no shame. Come on and play our combo, ain't nothing gonna get in our way. We're gonna ride this OP combo up to the legend rank. Combo. Man, I may so say it's a double Leroy Shadow set, man. Richard Morgan was pretty good if I recollect. Mercy sakes, good buddy, we made it to the very top of Wild Lever. Here's to a crazy run. See you around, boys. I'm gonna switch things up and play some Battlegrounds. This here's the Dwarf on the side. We gone. Bye-bye.
Oh my goodness, I love it. It's amazing. You have absolutely outdone yourself. The lyrics were brilliant, and appreciate the folks that provided some inspiration for you as well. But oh my goodness,
that was like at least a couple months in development there for me to figure out the right stuff, but totally worth it.
Oh, it was so good.
That was incredible.
My from smiling again.
It's so good. It's so good. Yeah, I love it. That's well done. I don't know what else to say, but well done. I'm quite inspired. I will make sure and get it up on the website over the weekend. And if anybody wants to listen to it further, you guys can visit the website and download it there or play it there. So.
And if
Very
anyone has
cool.
ideas for topics or songs to parody, feel free to let me know. I love working on this stuff. It's honestly, this is what the main thing I use the skills I learned from a college poetry class in. Like, I used to write poetry in class, but now I'm like, nope, I'm just using the meter and rhyme to write Hearthstone parody songs now. This is fun. I will do this.
This is the way.
Yes, this is the way. The Hearthstone parody song.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, we are nearing the conclusion of our show. I quickly want to pass the mic over to Sheep City to talk real briefly about our listener series.
Absolutely. So, for those of you who may not be familiar with our listener series, the Born to Be Wild listener series is a free Wild Hearthstone tournament series with custom deck building restrictions each week. The main series, so the regular season, lasts 5 weeks, followed by 3 weeks of playoffs. So this week is, of course, Season 4, Week 3. And the challenge for Week 3 is divisible by 3. So all cards in the deck must cost 3, 6, 9, or 12. So divisible by 3. This one, if I recall correctly, was submitted by Schmoopy Daddy.
Correct.
Yeah. So if you're watching live, after the show this evening, we will have a couple of guest casters come in to cast this match. So the guest casters, of course, are Jordan MG and Vapod, one from the People's Champ podcast. They will be joining Nate. And you'll notice that I didn't mention Hydra myself. That's because we will be stepping away from the mic and we will be going head-to-head for tonight's match.
So, yeah, buddy.
Yeah, buddy. So if you're watching live, stay tuned. And after the show, we'll get on with that listener series match. And if you are catching this on the replay, either on YouTube or listening through your podcast platform of choice, check it out on YouTube because Nate posts those pretty much when the show goes live as well.
That's the plan.
Check it out there. For additional information about the listener series, of course, check out the website www.borntobewildhs.com. So that is the listener series this week.
Yeah.
Excitement abounds. I can't wait to get the floor mopped by Hydra. I just want to mop the floor with me is what I was trying
You
to
guys
say.
have had some interesting restrictions this time around. Like, really, like makes you think and notice cards that would have been overlooked before, but because it fits the mana cost, like, oh wow, play this that would never play on ladder.
Yeah, and that's sort of the goal. I mean, I think if for people who are wanting to play Wild competitively, there's not a whole lot of outlets aside from ladder. THL has a great Wild series that a lot of our friends play in. If you're looking to play Wild competitive Hearthstone, but a lot of times it's meta decks, and there's nothing wrong with that at all, but it's a different experience. And so what we've got is something totally different where each week there's a special deck building restriction. We have been able to essentially community crowdsource the deck building restrictions last season and again this season. And so it's been really fun. So every week there's a different challenge or restriction, and they were all brought about by community members. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun. For those people who were interested, there was a question about whether you could start in the middle of the season. So for sure, we can add you. The way that the point system works, it's all spelled out on the website, or you can reach out to us directly. If you start this late in the game, the chances of you making it to the finals are pretty slim, but certainly if you want to play and interact with other people, we'd love to have you. There's information on the website, or you can reach out to us through Discord, and we'll be happy to provide more information. But yes, it's free, and we'd love anyone to join. It's an absolute blast. So Yeah.
Absolutely. So please join in the listener series. It is so much fun to participate in, to watch, to cast.
The
Always
whole
a
deal.
blast.
Oh, it's so fun. It's so fun. I love casting matches, and it's a whole fun thing. I mean, we put a lot of work into the production. It's just a blast. It's so much fun doing it. So, yeah. Okay. Last thing we've got up here is our weekly listener challenge. So
So we can turn this one ogre to Hydra.
Okay, so last week, basically, the idea was, I wasn't on the show, but it was to have your opponent concede to a Boulder Fist Ogre being played on board. Am I correct?
Blame Shmoopy.
you know what? So he reached out ages ago to suggest this as a challenge, and the challenge was, yeah, you play a Boulder Fist Ogre and your opponent concedes, and I was like, it's impossible, vetoed. And I was like, nope, don't want to hear it, nope. And so last week Hydra was out and Shmoopy guest hosted, and we were kind of in a rush and didn't have a challenge set, and Shmoopy's like, I got this one, guys, I got this one. It's like, okay, cool, thank you. And had forgotten all about this, and he's like, Boulder Fist Ogre concede. I was like,
He saw the opportunity and he took it, and you can't backtrack on the spot, man.
no, it's great. It's great. And now he cheated a little bit here, but I really appreciate. Had to prove that it could be done, and so Shmoopy spent the better part of the week trying to figure out how to do it, something maybe a little bit of a sneaky sort of way, although there's sort of a mini prohibition of the hosts winning the prizes, and so I'm very happy to see Shmoopy did it, but our very own Dr. BOMD I think capitalized on some of that inspiration and was able to pull off this amazing feat here. Now, Doc was presenting lethal in several other ways, but it happened. I love it.
And the ogre was in fact the last thing played.
Are needed here,
Yeah,
so.
it could have been just like this last, like, this is what I have in my hand, take this.
It's great. Hey, you know what? This satisfies the obligations here. There's a Boulder Fist Ogre, and the opponent has conceded.
And the Boulder Fist Ogre was the last one played, so it was the exclamation mark that caused the concession. So props to Doc.
All right. You did
Doc
it.
wins
Adam, I did not think it could be done. I was skeptical.
Yeah.
So extra congratulations, and with the 15-16 ogre to boot, it has been sufficiently buffed. Love to see it. So yeah, big clap for Doc over here.
Yeah. So of course, Dr. Bomb wins 2 packs on us for winning, as well as, of course, having his achievement enshrined immortally on the website borntobewildhs.com.
Love it. All right, so this week's challenge,
however, we were going for earlier, make your ogre as big as it can possibly be to try and bait your opponent into conceding. This time, you can't play the minion that you're buffing. So this week's challenge is biggest buffed single minion in hand, not played. So it has to stay in your hand. How big can you get that single minion in your hand? The biggest minion wins. Most stats, point blank, and the period. That's it. Has to be in your hand, not played, largest minion. So how can you participate with this challenge? Well, challenges can be played in casual or on ladder. You can't play it against a friend. They'll let you in. You can't play it against the innkeeper. He'll let you in.
Jake, did you know that I had the innkeeper the other day had a Gromish that was actually enraged, did not attack with it, and then brawled and killed their own Gromish?
See?
This happened.
He let you in. That's what I'm saying. He doesn't mean to. He's just,
So no, yeah, you cannot play against the innkeeper. That right there shows you can do it.
disqualifying. Yeah, exactly. So once you've achieved this mighty goal of having the biggest buffed single minion in hand, not played, you take a screenshot of it and post it in our Discord in the weekly challenges channel. So the winner, of course, will be announced on next week's show, like Dr. BOMD tonight. And that winner, of course, will receive 2 Hearthstone packs on us, but mostly be immortalized in the Hall of Fame on the Born to Be Wild website. So we are looking forward to seeing how big your hand can get. Go forth and make that hand big. I don't know. I don't have anything clever there. Sorry.
So the goal here, there's a lot of different...
Gentlemen, get buff.
There you go.
There's a lot of different ways to buff minions in your hand, but very often they're either random or they're spread out. And so this is not cumulative. I'm looking for the largest single minion. And so, you just got to get creative with it. There's some ways and some methods. Sheep found an interesting one before the show.
As a big contender here.
Don Honcho is definitely useful. I will say that. But what we've done in previous challenges is that in the event of a tiebreaker, we'll like tally stats or whatever. And I'm not looking to do that this time. Really, what I'm looking for is to see people one up each other. And so show me your 15-16 Boulder Fist Ogre, but I want to see then someone else show me a 2021 Boulder Fist Ogre and see how large we can get a single minion. There's no need to play it. I just want to see it in hand. And to do that, you just hover over it and it'll enlarge on the screen. You take a screenshot. So exciting. I'm interested to see what you all come up with. And I'll participate in this as well. Not that I can win, but just for the fun of it. And so... oh yeah, if you do an angry chicken, then even better. So
yeah, my strat that I will do, because I'm going to participate as well, is with horrendous growth.
Oh, you gave away the secret. All right,
I had to give away the special sauce.
You got to bleep it out, Murgle that.
So, just saying, I'm going to do it with the horrendous growth. You'll see it.
There's nothing wrong with that. If there's cards that grow in hand or corrupt or however, that all counts towards the buffing, so that's totally fine. I want it in hand, so you can't use Shade of Naxxramas that buffs each turn on the board. You got to buff it in your hand. So
yeah.
And I assume this isn't one of those you have to win while doing it type of challenges. You can lose and it still counts.
You could lose horribly just as long as you have that big dude in your hand.
You have to survive the game long enough to be able to do it.
You got to get the screenshot though, because if it's in your hand and the cards are all like folded down, you can't see the stats. So you'd have to like hover over it to take the screenshot so that we can see.
Yeah, that might be that could be tricky.
No, that's cool. You can do it on mobile. You can do it on. But the timing, you got to get the timing right. But it can be done, I believe. And if anyone's struggling with it, then reach out to us on Discord and we can walk you through it. But all right, I'm recording again now, so you can make your prediction official. I think that you are correct, and I'm excited to see it happen. But if you want to put it on the record for us, what is your prediction for the mini set?
All right, so I'm going full Doomsday Prophet here. If I am correct with this, it'll be really cool. If I fail, it'll be a real obvious bomb. But what I think is, without seeing any data mining or anything like that, I'm just picking this up from clues and patterns with what they have released so far. And I even have a couple additional clues since the last show where I made this prediction. I think the mini set is not going to be something related to Alterac Valley, like how we've had, like Dark Moon Races, Dark Moon Fair, or anything like that. No. We're going someplace completely different to be a final, a grand finale, a cap-off to this year-long story of the Year of Mercenaries. Because as we've been tracking through the story, it's one of those puppet master type of villains where, gradually there's been the realization that Kazakus and Lady Prestor are the ones who are in control of all of this. And so we're inevitably leading up to a confrontation with them. Kazakis is a Hearthstone original character. Whatever they do with him, they'll probably throw him in this whole thing, of course. But Lady Prestor, Onyxia, has a well-known, early in the game's history raid called Onyxia's Lair. Where, like, you kill her and everything. Canonically, this is actually Varian who killed her in order to save because she kidnapped Anduin. I say this few points of evidence, not only in just this seems to be where the year-long story is going, it makes sense from that perspective, but you may remember there was a little spotlight shown on her and the relationship with Anduin in the cinematic song for United in Stormwind. She's like, don't be afraid of the shadows, the young prince is fine, and, just quickly moves on. I don't think that was for nothing. It's like, sure, she was a card, but it's not like they talked very much about her. She only became more relevant when we had the Scabs Cutter Butter solo adventure, which is kind of, unveiling that, she's being a puppet master about all this. So there's that angle. There is also how the year-long story has been mirroring the progression of a new player, especially in the early days of World of Warcraft, where you start out in a zone like the Barrens. It's an early game zone where you've created your character recently. You have some of your first dungeons, like the Wailing Caverns. You eventually get up to where you get to your capital city, like Stormwind if you're Alliance, and then we have another early dungeon in the form of the Deadmines. And now we have moved up into a bit more endgame PvP content with Alterac Valley, because, as I'm sure you guys noticed or was talking about, this thing isn't simple. This is one of the most complex PvP game modes in Warcraft, so much so that's honestly one of the reasons I completely suck at it. But, so, moving on with that natural progression, the ultimate, end game content in terms of difficulty, especially if we're moving away from PvP and giving PvE content a bit more, is a raid. And it fits in perfectly with that style of ramping up the types of content as you're leveling up. Even the armor that the mercenaries and the adventurer characters from the Wailing Caverns are all dressed in has been gradually the increasing level armor sets from the game. We like to talk about that every so often. It's amazing how they implement all that art there. It's exactly the armor sets that you get at certain levels in the game. So all of that together is stuff that I predicted before. But I have one additional thing that I think leans into that we're going to have a Nixia theme soon.
Oh.
The new mercenaries that just came out. Because we have some that are connected with Alterac Valley. Like we have Belinda Stonehearth and Captain Galvadar. They're mercenaries in the mercenary mode now. But we also got some dragons. And they were in separate announcements. If you go into Mercenaries and you see, you have the little mailbox thing there that gives you, here are the great new updates. Spend money on this.
And how?
There were two different ones. One, it was focusing on, these characters from Alterac are now in, like, Stonehearth and such. And then I clicked the arrow, and there's an entirely different announcement that face the new dragon mercenaries, and we have like a Rathian and Sinestra, who Sinestra is actually one of, both of those are members of the Black Dragon Flight, so the same as Deathwing and Onyxia and Nefarian from, Black Rock Mountain. So I think that's another little hint contributing puzzle, because they've been doing things very thematically when they add things to Mercenaries. It's always connected to content that's just come out, like Pirates of Deadmines and all that. Why would they randomly throw in some dragons here along with the Alterac stuff if they weren't planning on having something dragon related? So that's my evidence that I've stated before the court. We will see if I turn out to be correct. Either I am the prophet or I am the guy who completely screwed up all the evidence. But maybe I'm Sherlock Holmes. We'll see. We'll see.
But Kazakus is totally not a dragon.
His flavor text absolutely says so. Yes. Yeah. Originally, they were going to have where his card. The effect was that it transformed into his dragon form. I read that in the art book for the Year of the Mammoth with the concept art, but they changed it to the potion focus. But there's the art in the book. Actually, just a second, I have it on my shelf back here.
That's so cool. Yeah, it says the mysterious leader of the Cabal is not a dragon and does not deal in illegal potions. Any public statements to the contrary will be met with litigation and dragon fire potions.
See? It actively says he's not.
That's right. It says it in all caps too.
Me thinks the flavor text might protest too much.
Sorry, I meant Year of the Kraken. Man, I'm getting old in Hearthstone. I'm getting my years all mixed up. The guy just saying was in the Year of the Kraken.
Back in my Hearthstone day.
Right here is on the Kazakus page. This is what the concept art was for him as a dragon, and I think that we're going to see that fully realized in the game. We'll see.
That's
Lady
definitely not a dragon.
Turn into her full Onyxia form, and I'm sure we'll see Kazakus get his full dragon form too. It'd be anticlimactic if we didn't.
That's true. That's true. I like it. A bold prediction, but I think it's very accurate. I like that you have the clues and the evidence, so to speak, to back up your assertion here. So
detective emoji.
That's right. I love it. Well, we'll be waiting with bated breath, and I think that you'll be right, and I guess we'll see. So I can't wait. I think it'll be great. And if we are looking at past timelines and trying to predict when the mini set will come out, we were looking at guessing approximately February 8, maybe February 15. Right around there. The 8th.
I'll leave the number predictions to you guys.
The 8th is the day that lines up the cleanest to me, but it's really soon, and so they would have to make an announcement like next week or something. Like,
and for the mini set, they've historically done like a shorter turnaround time in between announcement and.
Right, it's like a dumping all of the cards right there, no long drawn out. At the most over a week, but I think at least one time they just revealed them all at once, like right after the announcement.
Yeah. So it could very well still be the 8th or 15th is kind of whenever I was looking through the historical record.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to it.
Excitement abounds.
All right. But I'm sure everyone else is also looking forward to seeing you guys do good out in the listener series. So I'm going to hop out and let you guys get going with that. But it's always love being on the show. Can't wait for next time where, if this is true, maybe we'll end up talking more about Black Dragons as the theme for the next episode. We'll see.
We got some old gods to talk about too, don't we?
Yeah, we still have to.
For the old god series, we still have to do. Yes.
I keep on bringing it up too. So thank you, Hydra, for bringing it up first this time.
Excellent. Very good.
I'm excited.
All right. See you guys later.
Sounds great.
Bye, friend.
Later, Goliath.
Bye-bye. All right, friends. Well, that about wraps up this week's show. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you very much to the folks who are hanging out here live on Twitch, interacting with us. We have so much fun. Thank you to everyone who's watching on YouTube or listening live on a podcast app. For more wild content or see where you can find us individually, please visit our website at borntobewildhs.com. There's some big updates coming to the website this weekend. I'm really excited to work on it. And so, like Sheep was saying earlier, for those of us here watching live, hang out for just a couple minutes. We'll be transitioning over to our hosted and cast listener series battle tonight between our hosts, Hydralisk and Electric Sheep City. Very excited to hang out with Vapod and Jordan and cast this match. It'll be a blast. And again, that match will be posted to YouTube as well if you miss it live and want to watch it later. All right, everybody, that's it. Thank you so much to Goliath for hanging out tonight and sharing your stories with us.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
See everybody else next time on another episode of Born to be Wild.